Dartmouth is in Nova Scotia, as far as I know.
Across the road from Halifax.
Across the road.
The Angus L. McDonald Bridge. Separates the two.
Did the Nova Scotians have their own jokes?
Yeah, mainly about Newfoundlanders.
All of Canada picks on Newfoundland.
Back in my day, the have-nots, they were the fishermen. And the have-nots, there was the country bumpkins versus the city slickers. And that took up lots of our time. And we were finished with that. Then it was the people who had money and didn't have money. So we had good neighborhoods and we had bad neighborhoods. So not that far away were the Albra Lake boys. And they were the have-nots. And we were the haves. Our fathers had blue-collar jobs and they did well. And they were nearly white-collar. Right? But those Albra Lake boys, oh, they were drinkers and boozers and their parents were out of control. And as long as they stayed the other side of Woodlawn Avenue, that was okay. But if they wandered over there, they were in trouble. They were in big trouble because it was just like a gang. Then they went over into the have territory and they weren't allowed in there. They hadn't earned it. Right? And they were just going to create havoc. If they were spotted in the neighborhood, right, the message was clear. There was an invasion.
Really?
Oh yeah, you weren't allowed to play with them. You weren't allowed to be around them, right? Yeah. Albra Lake. I never even saw Albra Lake. I don't know where the hell it is. But that's how it was. And when we went to schools, and the school I went to, the Northbrook, that was right on the border. And there were some Albra Lake boys, and you were warned by your mother, you're not playing, I don't want you near any of them. They were a bad influence. And it was true. It was true. My mother had enough to deal with. And my mother was just forbidden. There was no discussion. You could bring up any idea, enforcement, they were just humans, it didn't matter. It was not negotiable. That was that. End of story. If you played with anybody and there was trouble, and they led you astray, they were just cut off and that was it. They were played up. There was obviously some bad parenting going on and there was some bad blood and her boys weren't playing with them and that was the end of it. And that was that. We accepted that.
Interesting. So, what was, they were lower class?
They were hardworking, and some of them, of course, had broken families, and they were without fathers.
Were they involved in the military?
They were divorcees, Ted.
That was the neighborhood of divorcees?
Oh, nothing worse than a divorced woman. There was a woman who's just totally out of control, without morals or scruples. If you're divorced and you can't even look after a husband and make a good choice to begin with, you are nothing. You are done. And that's it. You were shunned.
So that was a stigma. So socially in Dartmouth, this is back in the 60s.
It was okay if the husband beat you at night, but you did not leave.
Wow.
You did not. That was against the code.
Oh, okay. So that, remember you told me about they bought the ticket?
Yeah.
So that's maybe why she came back, because it was...
who knows why she came back. Right?
Well, that could be one possible reason if you're telling me the stigma back then.
But while she didn't divorce, they just took her out of there.
No, but that's the step before divorce.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, well, this was dangerous for the children. And this is what was said. And then everything is done. And you look after the children at all costs. So you remove the threat.
So... this neighborhood that you're talking...
A woman then didn't have a job, couldn't work, it was very difficult to get a job. A woman who did not get married was an old maid. In Denmark, when you were 30, you got a gift as a peppermill. And a peppermill, what it really meant was you were a failure, you couldn't find a man.
No.
Right? And when you went in the house and there was a big, beautiful, those big, fancy peppermills, that was your gift for being a failure. And that was bought for you. And you're a woman with a with a peppermill. Yeah.
So a woman with a peppermill.
Yeah. Well, that was an old maid.
I have to stop it here so I can just put this up and call it woman with a peppermill.